Private Affairs, the award-winning fiction podcast about dating as an African expat in Australia, is back for season 2. Kicking off the group of friends jetting off to Thailand for an unforgettable birthday trip. Listen to Private Affairs on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. This project has been assisted by the Australian government through the Australia Council for the Arts, its arts funding and advisory body. Well, let's power on. Yeah, welcome to the Phoenix Station. Thank you for making contact. Thank you for offering to share your story. I'm more than happy to have you. Thank you.
You're so welcome. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for accepting to have me as well.
For those listening to the podcast for the first time, it's a romantic family and friendship breakup podcast showcasing stories that people would like to talk about with a view to give lessons from their experiences. Now, I hope you find today's story entertaining, but more importantly, meaningful. And the podcast is popular for two main reasons. The first being I do my best to keep my guests anonymous, which brings me to the fun part. You ready for this, my friend?
Very ready.
Cool. The naming ceremony. And I'm giving you a name from the motherland. For me, my home country of Zimbabwe. And the name that I've chosen for you is in a language called Chishona. And the name is Chishamiso. I'll spell that for you. Right?
Okay.
That's CHISHA MISO.
Okay, Chishamiso.
Yeah, Chishamiso. And what that means is miracle.
Ooh.
Yeah. So if you're a miracle child or if you had miraculous experiences, although I don't know how this is going to be a miraculous conversation, that's what this really, really means, Chishamiso.
Okay, that's a beautiful name, actually.
Yeah, it's pretty dope. And what are you calling the person that you're going to talk about today?
Okay, well, it's very simple. I'm going to call him Mind Games.
You're going to call him Mind Games?
Yes.
Yeah, because Mandem was moving mad with the mind, yeah?
Mandem was really moving mad. So, yeah, he doesn't deserve a special naming ceremony. Just a simple thing. Yes. So Mind Games.
All right. Awesome.
Should I spell that one out for you?
That's a good one, Chishamiso. That's a really good one. And the second reason why the podcast is doing great is their real life lessons that people learn from the experience you're going to share today. So, you got lessons for me?
Yeah, I have a lot.
When you say a lot, how many are we talking about here?
Just like 5. I mean, I had more, but I figured I didn't want to be that person with like 20 lessons. So we'll go with the 5.
Cool. Lesson number 1.
Okay, so the first lesson is pay attention to inconsistencies.
Yes. They're always a good sign, right?
Always. And it's always there.
Yep.
So,
Okay. That's lesson number 1. Pay attention to inconsistencies. Number 2.
Lesson number 2 is words speak louder than actions.
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
What? Hold up a sec. I was just about to be like, yeah, that's right. I'm like, That's not how it normally is. It's normally action speaks louder than words.
I know, it normally is. But I find that a lot of people give themselves away if you actually pay attention to what they're saying. But we're so fixated on like, oh, they make me feel nice. Oh, they brought me flowers. Oh, they did this, that we like forget to pay attention to when they were like, I actually don't like to be in relationships.
Yo, that is mad.
You get what I'm saying? Yes.
That is crazy. Okay, I almost missed that, That you did that really, really well.
I just slid that one in there. Hey?
Okay, lesson number 3.
Number 3 is never take your friends and family's opinions for granted.
Yeah. Half the time they can see things that you can't because you got rose-colored glasses, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's number 3. You got a 4th one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Listen to your gut.
Oh, yeah.
I think that one's pretty self-explanatory. Intuition, all that stuff.
Yep.
And then what are we on 4?
Yeah. So we're number 5 now.
Okay, I actually have 6. I just realized.
Okay, cool. You're slowly turning into that guy that you said you don't want to be that
guy. I know. I literally make fun of people like me. Wow.
All right, go for it. Number 5.
Okay, number 5 is do not finance a relationship, especially if you are the woman.
Yeah. Why not?
Because I feel like a man is serious. If he's serious about you, he will not feel comfortable like letting you just drop coins like that.
Okay, we'll see.
I'm not saying don't help, but don't be, the sugar daddy in your own relationship.
Listen, for me, there's this whole push about equality in the whole world about everything, right?
Yeah.
Equal pay, equal opportunities. So why don't we talk about equal financing here?
Exactly. Yeah? See, even I'm fine with that, but just don't be the one that does the most.
Okay. We'll let that play out. So that's number 5.
We'll let that play out. Yeah, you will understand shortly.
Okay. And number 6?
Okay. And the final one is the grass isn't greener on the other side. No, don't laugh at me like that.
No, I'm not laughing at you because I've just got some things that I'm just working around, and this resonates 2,000%.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying.
Love that.
That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Cool. So for those listening, I'll just play those back. The 6 lessons we have are: number 1, pay attention to inconsistencies. Number 2, words speak louder than actions. That has to be my favorite. Number 3, never take your friends' opinions for granted. Never take your friends and their opinions for granted. And then number 4, listen to your gut. Number 5, do not finance a relationship, especially if you're the woman. And number 6, the grass isn't greener on the other side. Right.
Yes.
Shishami, so
correct.
Let's get into this. Where did you meet Mind Games, and why did you decide this is the guy for me?
Okay. So I live in Canada, and Mind Games lives in Nigeria. So this was a long distance thing. But prior to all of that, I had gone to a wedding, and this was about like 2017. So the person getting married happened to be a cousin of his, and I knew his cousin because we grew up together.
Okay.
So we met at the wedding, and I was really attracted to him because, like, not only was he good looking, he was a good dancer.
Ooh.
And I myself am a dancer. So whether you're a man or woman, if I see you as a dancer, I'm automatically like, okay, like I need to get to know this person,
Nice.
do some dance moves and whatnot. Yeah. So he was a really good dancer. But at the wedding, we actually didn't talk much. It was after the wedding. So a few of us decided we were just going to go club hopping around Lagos. And for one, I'm not really a club hopping kind of person. Like, as much as I like to go out, I have that personality that's very much like, if we get to this spot, we are staying in this spot. Like, I'm not a fan of jumping from one place to the other. So I was already becoming very moody by like the 3rd spot we went to.
Right.
And he noticed that. Yeah. So he took it upon himself to like try to cheer me up. He was trying to talk to me, buying me drinks and whatever. So I'm like, okay, like, intentionality is very attractive. So I liked that he was just took that initiative to make sure that I was having a good time. And that was consistent throughout the time that I was there. Just because I forgot to mention, he was also a musician and a music producer. So he's worked with a lot of celebrities, and like we were getting into like all the parties that year. So all the parties, all the concerts, he had a way in. So he took it upon himself, like, especially knowing I'm from Canada, I haven't been back in a long time. He just made my trip really, really fun. And my own family members didn't really give a shit. They're just kind of like, whatever, like, you're here, do whatever you want to do. But he was the person that was like, no, let me take you here. Let me take you to where you can buy what you need to go back. So it just felt like something about him. I was like, I'm interested in getting to know him more because he seems like a really sweet guy. But here's the catch where one of the lessons comes in. So I was in a relationship in Canada. But the thing is, like, it was a really rocky relationship. Like, it was toxic as hell, but we had been together for 5 years. So it was that type of thing where, like, I didn't really know what to do because I'm like, hey, like, I met this person who's super cool, seems to check the boxes, but then I still have this thing that I don't even know if I want to be in it, but I'm still in it because of the familiarity. So by the time I got back to Canada, I basically just decided that I was going to go on a break, quote unquote, because I needed to figure out my feelings between this new person that I met and this person that I had been with that I wasn't really sure about. So
Right.
when I told him I wanted a break, he pretty much was just like, you must have cheated, you're trash, da da da, which wasn't the case. I just was confused. So then we finally eventually broke up. But then I didn't pursue things right away with mind games, only because, again, I had just come out of a relationship. I didn't really want to rebound. And he also didn't feel comfortable being a rebound. So we just took the time to get to know each other and be friends.
Okay. Question. Whilst you were in Nigeria, did you ever hold his hand? Did you ever hug in a way that you felt, ooh, this feels nice? Did your lips ever make contact?
The hugging for sure. Holding hands, did we hold hands? I guess so. But yeah, there was no like intimate kissing or touching or anything like that.
So you hugged and you held hands and you didn't kiss at all?
No, we did not.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
We came close. I won't act like we didn't. We came close.
And then?
But I because I knew, like I told him that I had somebody over there. So I just really tried my hardest to just maintain that boundary. But it was difficult.
But bear in mind, you have someone who you're not really feeling at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
And then here's someone you're really feeling in the moment.
I know.
All I'm just asking is, are you genuinely telling me the truth? Y'all didn't kiss? Because remember, we don't judge here. If you kissed, cool. You know, you're feeling.
No, we didn't kiss.
Yeah? Okay.
No, we didn't kiss. Because honestly, most of the time that we had spent together, it was always with other people. So yeah, there was, and the other people around, like my friends or my family that were around, they knew I was in a relationship. So I just didn't really want to feel judged or to have anybody talk shit. So
potentially, if you're alone, then it may have happened.
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Mm-hmm. I just needed to know that bit, but we're good to go.
Just you had to plant that seed. Yeah, no, we were barely alone. And so that's kind of why in the beginning I felt like it was just a lot of infatuation, but then as things progressed and I really started to see who he was, because then I was like talking to him one-on-one. I went to see him one-on-one. So yeah. The story we'll get to see. The one thing I will say is that because I mentioned that he was a producer, right? So another thing that I do aside from dancing is I also do spoken word. So when he found out that I was a spoken word artist, he had this bright idea for us to make a song. Like it's the most cheesiest fucking cliche thing, but we actually like made a song together. So it was just me doing like spoken word vocals over a beat that he created, and then he was singing with it. So it was just like, it was the beginning of a very cute love story, to say the least. So you can imagine how my feelings were crazy, because I'm like, oh my God, like it must be meant to be because we made a song and we're so cute. But yeah, that was me really just leading myself to a disaster.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So pretty much from that point, when I came back to Canada and we decided that we would just take things slow. We would start talking every day and figuring out like if those feelings were legit. So the one thing I did notice is that he was always very inconsistent with his communication, which was like a first red flag.
Which is a funny thing. If someone is constantly inconsistent, then they are consistent. Does it make sense?
It makes perfect sense. Yep.
So the funny thing that you found was he was inconsistent with his communications, which was a red flag for you. And what was his excuse?
Funny enough. So his excuse was always like, oh, I just didn't feel like responding to people today. Because he also was diagnosed with anxiety and depression. So throughout our relationship, like he used that as always like an excuse to make dumb decisions. So he would say like, oh, I just, I was feeling down today. I didn't feel like talking. But interestingly enough, like he's posting status updates. He's on Instagram. So he was like actively using his phone, but just wouldn't respond to me for like 5 hours. And this was, like I said, a consistent thing for at least the first like 2 or 3 months of us talking. Yeah. So I think at first I was kind of, because again, like this is someone who I had been around. I know that he uses his phone often. So I'm like, okay, this is really weird. But again, I'm like, hey, sometimes people go on their phones and they're not actually talking to anybody. So I believed it. But then I think by the time I got to like the last month of him doing that, then I started to pull back because I'm like, I don't think that this guy is serious. And of course, like, because I'm a very intentional person, I'm like, if I'm talking to you, I'm talking to you. So I'm not really entertaining other guys. And then this is a long distance thing on top of it. So I'm like, why am like I'm stressing myself out for no reason. So I started to withdraw in my communication. And then that's when so I'm thinking we're probably at like, because I went in December. So we're probably at like April now. And then that's when he started communicating more. He's the one reaching out, he's talking to me all day, wanting to be on the phone all day. So then it was kind of like things shifted and I'm like, okay, maybe he is actually into it again. So we would be on the phone for hours and hours and hours. Like, those, like, again, really cliche, cheesy, like we'd fall asleep on the phone together.
Yes,
we'd wake up. I would go to work and be like secretly video calling him. And like, it was like he was physically here because we were on the phone all the time. And the very first person who noticed this was my dad. So my dad asked me one day, because I think he was like starting to get wind of the fact that I was talking to someone. And he was like, this person you're always on the phone with, who is this? So I just downplayed it. I'm like, oh, it's just someone I'm getting to know, blah, blah, blah. And my dad was like, does he have a job? Because how does he manage to have so much time to be on the phone? Like, you guys are on the phone for like 12 hours in a day. Does this person work?
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And funny enough, this was like a consistent question that I was getting asked by family, by friends, where people were just like, is he really doing what he says he's doing? Because he seems to have a lot of free time on his hands. Yeah. So we now fast forward, and I'm starting to plan to go to Nigeria again, because again, I'm exploring my feelings around this person. And it didn't make sense to be doing it like long distance. So I decided that I would go to Nigeria again in December.
So what was stopping him from coming to you in the first instance?
Well, and this is, as the story progresses, you'll realize, but his excuse really was just more or less like, oh yeah, things are a little tough right now. I'm not sure I'll be able to make it. And he has family that live on this side of the world. He has family that live in Canada, in the US. But there was just always excuses. Oh, I have these projects. Oh, things are tight, blah, blah, blah. So essentially it was on me to make those trips happen.
Okay.
Red flag, right?
Yeah, and I don't mind being judged for this, but I don't feel a woman should ever be the first to make a trip to go see a guy. Because from a guy's perspective, all that basically says is, you want me so much, you're willing to do this, then I can have my way with you.
Yeah.
Right? There is something, I don't even know how to describe it. There is something about a guy going after someone, and it's not even about the chase, but just about making the effort. That for guys, and I'll speak for myself, somehow makes it feel even more worth it. To try and go for. So if it's the other way around, I don't know.
Yep.
I don't know.
I agree with you.
Yeah, but go on.
Yep. I totally agree with you. Okay, so now December comes and I take another trip to go to Nigeria. And he was the one that picked me up from the airport. He took me to my auntie and uncle's house. And the thing with my auntie and uncle, they're very funny people. Like, if they meet you for the first time, they're almost too nice and too welcoming, because they're trying to use like, style to figure out who you are as a person. So they're like, oh yeah, like, come back, drink with us. We'll cook you dinner. Like, that was their strategy, to be like, we really need to figure out who this person is. So their initial impression was they liked him. They're like, he seems like a very nice, generous guy, especially since he picked you up. He brought you here, blah, blah, blah. And it's Lagos, like, there's mad traffic. So, that to them was like, okay, that seems like a good sign, but we need to see more. So they invited him over a couple of times. And Same thing, you know, he would spend all day in the house. This man would even be taking naps in there. Like, you don't even know these people and you're that comfortable to take a nap in their house. So my auntie was like, what does this guy do for a living? And I said the same thing. I'm like, you know, he's a producer, songwriter, musician. Like, he basically has his own schedule. And she's like, are you sure he's not a Yahoo boy?
Yahoo boy.
Okay. So again, for people who don't know what Yahoo is, it's basically people that do scams. So she was like, are you sure? Because that doesn't, like, something is not adding up here. Like, this man has all this free time. If he's like seriously a producer, musician, whatever, shouldn't he be in the studio working on things?
Yeah.
So something about that just didn't sit right with her. And then we decided, because like usually for like I'm Igbo, so usually for Igbo people, if you go back home in Nigeria, you always end up at your village. Like for Christmas, for New Year's, you go to your village and spend time with your family over there. So we were preparing to go to the village. He was also going to his village. And so my auntie and uncle were like, okay, like since we're all going to be at that area at the same time, like, you know, let's spend time together. And he was like, yeah, you know, totally, I'll come. I'll even invite, can I just say Chi-Chi?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Chi-Chi.
Yeah. Okay. Because I'm like, I'm not going to remember the
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
Shamiso, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, he was like, I'll even invite Chi-Chi to come to my side. So yeah, everything was set in stone. It was good. Now we fast forward to that time period and he's nowhere to be found. So like him and I were communicating, but then he was always making excuses as to why he wouldn't come see my people. And again, like that's kind of a bad sign, because if you really are intentional, if you're serious about the relationship, what would stop you from going to see my family? So my uncle kept asking me, he was like, where's your friend? I thought he said he was going to come. What's going on? And I was just like, the same thing. I had to keep lying on this man's behalf, but I really didn't know what he was up to. So now it's January 1st. It's New Year's Day. And again, like this is like a pattern of behavior that you'll notice as I tell the story. Like he always found the worst times to drop bombs on me. So we come January 1st, everybody's celebrating New Year's or whatever. And he sends me a message and was like, hey, like there's something I need to talk to you about. So he now is telling me the reason why he didn't come and the reason why he didn't invite me to see his people is because he heard something about me that was very disturbing to him.
From where? From who? How?
Exactly. So remember when I said that I had met him by going to his cousin's wedding? So this cousin of his has a brother that I was very close with. Like we were friends. And apparently somebody in his family, when they heard that I was talking to him, they thought that I was like dating the both of them. And till today, I don't know how this rumor even came to be. But now it was this whole thing where he's like, I want to invite this girl. But then people are like, what's really the deal? Because isn't she talking to your cousin? So I don't know if the cousin now said something that made them think that. But either way, he was like, oh, he was kind of uncomfortable because of that. Because like they were basically thinking I was like a homewrecker. And so what pissed me off about that, though, is I said, you and I have been talking for almost a year. We've been talking every single day, all day. And even when I would hang out with your cousin, I would literally tell you that I'm with your cousin. So how would you now come back and then believe this rumor and not even address it with me? Like you waited until maybe like a week after the fact to say something. And he was like, oh, I just didn't know. I was really confused. And, you know, they were really opinionated and I just didn't feel comfortable. And I started second guessing the relationship. Oh, sorry. At this point, we were not in a relationship. No, wait. Yes, we were in a relationship, but it was like we made things official during that trip. So maybe let's say we made things official like 4 days before New Year's, something like that. So yeah, so he's like, well, now I started second guessing everything. And again, that didn't sit well with me because I'm like, you know, how can you talk to someone so much and you still don't know them or don't know me in that case? So I was a little bit confused, but I said, you know what, whatever, shit happens. It's fine. Like we can start over. So now I come back to Canada and we're talking again. And he had this habit of always trying to like catch me doing something. So he would like go through my Instagram. If he sees a guy like putting a heart on my picture, he would like try to stalk and figure out like who this person is to me. So yeah, so it was a lot of, you see why he gets the name Mind Games?
Yeah.
Like it was a lot of that. He was very, very manipulative. So like he would like try to say certain things or like phrase questions in a way that would like sort of implicate me of doing something, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's what he did. It was like, this was like 6 a.m. again, factoring time difference. So like 6 a.m, he calls me and he's like, I heard something very troubling and da 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 da. And pretty much was like, oh, I heard you're still talking to your ex. And I'm like, what? Like, who, what? Like, it was so confusing to me. And again, this was because an ex of mine happened to have liked a picture, maybe put a heart, I don't even remember. And so he now was like trying to use mind games to get me to reveal something between us. And I was like, what are you talking about? I'm like, yeah, we talk here and there, but like, it's not anything serious. So I don't know. There was this whole big emotional blowout. And basically, because I'm a pretty emotional person. So like, if you accuse me of doing something I didn't do, I feel like I have to prove to you, and I will get like really heated, whether that's angry, whether that's sad. So it was just like, we were just going off at each other. And I had to go to work. I'm like trying to get ready for work and fighting with this man who lives half across the world.
Yeah.
So anyways, I finally get to work. We're still fighting. And then he's like, okay, I'm sorry. Like, I shouldn't have accused you, blah, blah, blah. But get this. This man now decides to say, oh, I actually have something to tell you. Oh, I actually had slept with someone while you were in Nigeria.
Mad.
Yeah. So that time when he went, like, disappeared because apparently I was sleeping with his cousin or whatever the rumor was. He was like, oh, he was so distraught that like he went and slept with somebody else because of that.
Come on, dude. This is the part where I get tempted to play that song. Heard it all before. Because that is just some bullshit.
Yeah, it was absolute bullshit. And the funny thing is, he also admitted, like that time when I was telling you that he was really inconsistent, he also admitted that he was sort of in a situation with someone and he was trying to get that whole thing figured out. That's why he was being distant. And the same person was a person that I already suspected that things were going on between them. But every time I would ask him, he would lie about it. He'd be like, no, she's just a friend. It's nothing. We just work together, blah, blah, blah. But then like the time I met this girl, her energy was really weird. And I always find like women are like that. Like if they like your man or if they're fucking your man, like their energy will be off. So something about that, I'm like, okay, I don't really feel right about this. And then he admits to me, yeah, I was sleeping with this person and I was in like an emotional entanglement with this other person. So, you would now think that Chi-Chi would borrow sense and would be like, this person is useless.
Yes, no.
But, but no, Chi-Chi cried at work all day, texted all her good friends and was like, can you believe that this happened, that this man, blah, 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 but then still decided to stay and give it a chance. Because in my mind, I was like, well, it was still really early on. We were still figuring things out. Like I was using all the excuses to justify for this.
When you say early on, how early are we talking here?
So we made things official. That would have been like towards the end of December. And this conversation was happening in maybe like February.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So that's 2 months in, kind of.
Exactly. So I was trying to be like, okay, like it was still fresh. That like, I don't know if I could entirely judge him. But at the same time, like, again, if somebody's serious about you, like they're serious about you from the beginning to the end, there shouldn't be a time of just, oh, I'm still figuring out things with this girl that I was fucking before.
Yeah.
And I slept with this, like, you know what I mean? So whatever, I decided to stay and I decided to work it out. Now, fast forward, we get to, so for the most part, like things were going pretty well. We were having conversations about, him coming to visit or possibly moving to Canada. And again, it was always just conversations because he never really put action into anything. So then I was like, you know what? If things are a little bit difficult for you to come here, I will just come to Nigeria again. So then now I decided to start planning. Instead of doing another December trip, I decided I would go in the summer.
Gigi.
Hey, God.
Why all the effort? Why all the effort?
And the crazy
you got
thing
a
is,
guy
like,
who's told you, I've been with another woman whilst you were around. You have a guy who's told you, I've got so much stuff going on, has every excuse under the sun not to spend time with you. And here you are making plans again to be with him.
I know.
What was it about him that you were so into?
What in hindsight, when I think about it, I don't know if I was necessarily as into him as I thought. I think it was just because I had this relationship that I left. I didn't have enough time to grieve the relationship before I moved on. So I almost felt like I had to prove to myself and everyone else that this new relationship has to work. Like, I didn't just throw 5 years in the dustbin to come to this one and it's absolute shit. I don't know. Like I said, it's a very stupid way of thinking. It's a very stupid way of thinking, but back then.
What that is basically saying to me is, I recognize that I got a shit show going on, but I'm not prepared to admit it to myself.
Yes.
Mad.
100%. 100. I am convinced that man did juju on me, because there's no way. Like, I can't. Like, the person I am now, if you don't pick up my phone call, I'm already side-eyeing you. And now I'm here with somebody who told me he slept with yeah. The story only gets worse from here. It only gets worse.
Okay. Let's hear it.
All right. So at this point, like I said, I decided I'm going to come back to Nigeria. And he's like, oh yeah, totally. We'll go half on your ticket. So again, like, from where I live to Nigeria, the cheapest you could get a ticket is maybe like $1,200, $1,300, $1,400, right?
Jeez.
So yeah, it's quite a lot. So imagine, like, I had already, if we do the math, I've already gone, this would have been my third time going in like in 2 years. So that's a lot of money. And like, it was like, at this point, I had only graduated from uni like a few years. I was just working my job, my full-time career job. So everything was so fresh for me that I couldn't afford to be spending that kind of money, but here I was spending it. So he's like, yeah, since you've done so much already, we'll go half on your ticket. And I was like, okay, bet. So my dumbass went and took out a loan and bought another ticket, thinking, oh, he's at least going to give me half, so it's not going to be a total loss. Only for me to now, when I'm asking for the money, he's like, oh, I'm waiting for a project to go through, and then I'll send you your half of the money. I never got my half of the money. I get to Nigeria, same thing. Oh, I still haven't been paid yet, but don't worry, I'm going to pay you. And because at this point I'm so in love or in stupid, whatever you want to call it, I didn't ask any questions. Like, this every day, in my mind, I was like, is this man really going to pay me? But I was like, it's fine. It's love. I'm going to get the benefits of it in some other way. So,
but what are the possible ways you could have had the benefits of that?
I don't know. I guess him, in like, the way that I literally thought of this was like, he would come to Canada, he would get his job, everything would be fine. I would get my money eventually. Because we were having those conversations of like, he's going to move here, he's going to do this and that or whatever. But all of it was just bullshit. And that's another factor too, because remember how I said people kept being concerned about this job thing. He legitimately wasn't like, it wasn't like a scam thing. He legitimately was in the music industry, but because he had a very like relaxed personality, he was not pushing projects the way that he should have been. So he was always broke. And then in terms of having a plan B for his career, he didn't have a plan B. So I was like, okay, even if you do come to this side of the world, what are you going to do? And he didn't know. One day he'd be like, oh, maybe I'll do social work. Oh, maybe I'll do IT. Like, he just didn't know what he wanted to do with his life, which is very weird because Nigerian people are usually not like that. Like, from the time you're a child, your parents are like, you will be a doctor. Do you understand? Like, you're just going to like roll through life with no plan. So he had no plan. And that actually was becoming a problem for me. But that trip that I had gone, the I guess third time, I was trying to have these conversations and I was really trying to feel out, because again, this was the first time that we were spending together like alone, right? Like consecutive days alone, as opposed to, oh, there's family, there's friends, like we were actually together. And everything felt good for the most part. Like I didn't feel uncomfortable in any way, aside from, again, there was the whole piece of like, what are you planning to do with your life? And I still hadn't figured that out. So we now fast forward and I come back to Canada, because he does the same thing. He picks a fight with me right when I'm about to leave. And I don't even remember what the fight was about because it was stupid. But then I come back and he now reveals to me, oh yeah, I was second guessing our relationship. I felt a little bit neglected. So I had slept with 3 women before you came.
Yeah. No comment.
No, it doesn't even deserve a comment. Like the fact that I can even laugh about this, there was a time in my life I couldn't laugh about this. As I was like, what the hell was wrong with you, Chi-Chi, to be in this situation? But yeah, so he admits this. And at this point, like, I'm actually sitting there being like, okay, I still want this to work in some weird way, but now I'm also like less invested. So I'm like, okay, if this man's going to be fucking around, then I'm just going to do the same. Like that became my mindset, because he had always said that if a woman ever cheated on him, that it would break him, which is very ironic considering this man at this point had been in a whatever with me situationship relationship for a year and had slept with 4 women already. Like that doesn't make any sense. So
I mean, but wasn't 4 women enough for you to say that's enough, I'm going to go?
You would think. You would really think.
So I asked the same question again. What was it about this man?
I don't know. Because I can't even say it was the sex. Like the sex was great, but like it was long distance. So it wasn't like we were having sex that often. Like, so I don't know. Like I just feel like it was me not ready to take the L and admit that I fucked up. So it was like a thing of like, we're already here. We might as well just keep it going. I don't know. Since I honestly don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. So yes, I stayed and continued this shamble of a relationship. So again, fast forward as the year goes by. Now, like I said, I'm getting to the point of like, okay, I'm still in this, but I'm less invested. Like I was doing my thing over there. I really didn't care what he was doing. It was like we just had the title of being a relationship without actually feeling like it was a relationship. So
when you say you were doing your thing, you were seeing other guys now.
I was seeing other guys. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So trying to think what else happened. Okay, I think at this point now, the conversation again was more of like, what's your plan? Are you going to come here? What's your career goals? Man still didn't know what he wanted to do. And I'm the type of person, like I know a lot of people who do the whole like sponsor thing, and they're the ones that do the work. But I'm very much like, if I'm going to sponsor you to come to this country, all I'm going to do is sign the signature. Like you're doing all the work if you want to be here. So again, I'm like, what are you going to do? And he just didn't have a plan. Every time we would say, okay, on this day, we're going to figure out the applications to get you your permanent residency to come here. Wouldn't fill out any of the applications. And his excuse was always me. It was like, I'm not seeing the qualities that I need to see for me to leave everything I'm doing here and come to Canada. He had an issue with the fact that I drink, that I smoke shisha, smoke weed, that I like to party here and there. Like this man would legitimately use religion as like a manipulative tactic to be like, you need to change your ways to be more of a wife material. And this is coming from somebody who has been cheating.
I was just about to say, so how does God sit and say, it's cool, you can have 4 chicks that you're screwing at the same time, in addition to your woman, and say, kudos to you, brother. That sits well with me.
Exactly. Yeah. And again, because I was at such a fragile state and such a lost, broken state that I was just like, you know what, maybe he is right. Maybe I do need to commit more to God and this and that. But it's just like, again, And the thing with me is that even though I can make those stupid decisions, I'm still pretty logical, because I would literally say to him, like, if I also need to change my ways, what about you? Like, I would say that right back to him and be like, hey, I could do this prayers and go to church and do all of this, but like, are you doing the same? Right. And he would always be like, yeah, I'm working on it, blah, blah, blah. The only reason I made those mistakes, I was always the person to blame for why he couldn't keep his dick in his pants. So yeah, so he tried to use the whole manipulative stuff. But again, because now I was starting to get to the point of being like, this is a waste of my time, it just wasn't really sinking in anymore. So we now get to like, where are we now? I think, yeah, it would have been February. So it was literally a week before Valentine's Day. This man sends me a long ass message, because I remembered I was at karaoke with some friends. So he sends me this long ass message, basically breaking up with me and saying like he tried in the relationship, but I just wasn't invested and I seemed like my mind was elsewhere, or blah, blah, blah. Just like bullshit. And the thing is, I literally started laughing, because I'm like, is this man psychotic? Like, this is someone who, I was the one who was making these trips to Nigeria. I was the one who, like, you didn't pay me back. I was the person here still tolerating you after you had admitted sleeping with all of these women. Like, what effort did you put into this relationship? So I didn't even respond. I kept quiet until the next day. So then after that, I sent him a voice note, a 45-minute voice note.
Yes,
I didn't even know that it was. When you have like, you have taken in so much that you just explode. Like, till today, I don't even know what I said in that 45-minute voice note. But all I know is that I told this man about his life. There was no insults that did not come out of my mouth. I'm pretty sure I cursed his future generations. Like, it just did not stop. Like, he actually cried. He legitimately called me crying and was like, why would you say all these hurtful things and blah, blah, blah. You know that this and that I'm with my anxiety and depression, and you would say this and yada, yada. At this point, I just didn't care. Because again, like, when it comes to the mental health thing, I have learned, like, I know that mental health affects everybody very differently, but I have also learned that, like, there are certain traits that if you already have it, all your diagnosis does is it enhances whatever it is. So like, if you're a lazy person, it's not your anxiety that caused you to be lazy. It just means it's going to make you like more extreme lazy or whatever. So a lot of the stuff that he was always saying and using as an excuse, it was legitimately just excuses. It wasn't his diagnosis that was the reason for that. So yeah, so basically at that point, like, like I said, I was done. He was crying and was saying whatever about the relationship, but I just didn't even care. So we didn't talk for a period of time. And then when we finally, after a while, when things were kind of cooling off, we decided to have a conversation, like a proper closure conversation, because we never had it. And this man continues to admit, oh yeah, like, in the entire time we were together, he slept with like 9 women. It wasn't just the... Hey! Yeah. I don't even know the number that we were at, but he admitted that.
Tell me you guys were using protection whenever you guys did it.
So it's so funny that you ask this, because let me just say, thankfully, I never tested positive for anything. Like, I was good, but I was getting a lot of UTIs whenever him and I would sleep together. So like your urinary tract infections. And someone has told me in the past, like, because of like the pH levels or whatever of women's vaginas, if your partner is sleeping around, your pH levels will change. Like, you'll start getting weird shit, whether it's like UTIs, you'll just start, things will feel off. So every time I had sex with him, I would develop a UTI. And that has not happened with other partners of mine.
Therefore, your answer to my question is you were not using protection.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So I was not using protection, and I was getting these UTIs whenever him and I would sleep together. Yeah. So when he had admitted that he was sleeping around or doing his thing, then I'm like, that might have been why I was getting those UTIs. Because again, this is not something that has happened with other partners.
Wrap
it up, children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Go
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. So yeah, so he admitted that there were more women, and then owned up to a lot of his shit. But it was still just very like somehow still trying to use mind games to be like, yeah, I still did all of this because of you, blah, 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 blah. So now we fast forward. Like that relationship broke me. Like I actually had to get therapy because I was so again, like I didn't know how I let myself get to that point. My finances were a mess because of all these trips. Because again, when you take trips back home, it's not like you're just paying for your flight ticket. You're paying for the gifts you have to bring family. You're paying for like, because you're the one that comes from abroad, like everybody expects you to take the bill on things.
Yeah.
So yeah, these trips could easily rack up to like $5,000 for everything.
Yeah.
So I had taken multiple trips. Like I fucked up my finances so bad. It was just a really dark period of my life for a few years. So anyways, I ended up having a conversation with one of his friends because there were a couple of his friends that became my friends through the relationship. I don't know if I could call it real friendship though. But yeah, like one of the girls, she told me, she's like, she's like, as much as he is my boy and he's my friend, he was shit. And she even told me that when I had gone to Nigeria, one of the trips, there was another girl that he was sleeping around with who was her friend.
Hey.
And like we would all go to parties together. This girl is there, I'm there. Everyone knows that he's like fucking the both of us, but I'm the only one who doesn't know. Even the girl herself knows.
But your friends are not loyal though. They should have told you.
And that's why I said, are they like they're not really friends like that? Because clearly their loyalty was for him. And all of that stuff started coming to me after we had broken up. So I was thinking to myself, like, if we had actually gotten married, would these people have known this shit and just been like, yeah, let's just keep quiet and pretend we don't know that this man is scum? Yeah. So that was basically it. That was the shit show of a relationship that I was in for a year. Since I told you the story was wild, I told you.
For me, all I need to know is that there's just one other person in the equation, and we're gonna have problems. But you went from 2 to 4 to 6. I can count in twos almost 5 times. And there are still other women who are now starting to cause pH level issues for your cookie. And you still continue to bang with down protection. You still take flights to go to Nigeria. And you still don't know why you did this?
I don't know. Like, honestly, like, yeah. And I guess that could even be another lesson. Like, don't go into relationships until you're mature enough to do it. Because it's not like I was super young. Like, this was all happening in my, like, mid-20s. But I also was that person that got into relationships late in life. Yeah. Like, my first serious relationship, I was, like, 20. So I guess it just kind of makes sense. Like I was processing things, thinking, oh yeah, you know how we always talk about tough love, like, oh, our parents went through struggle, oh, this person went through struggle. Like in my mind, I kept thinking this was normal. He's going to change eventually. But no, clearly, because again, like after it happened the first time, I let it slide. And then it happened again 3 more times, right? So yeah.
All I'm gonna do is play back the lessons and close this out. because I mean, if you can't even tell me what it is that you felt got you here, I couldn't give a recommendation. But it is just wild, honestly, hand on heart. I've been in situations where maybe there's 1 or 2, 3 other people. I won't say the max number because I'm not about to shame her or shame myself for not moving away from that quicker.
Yeah.
But 9? Lesson number 1, pay attention to inconsistencies. Yeah, he was consistently inconsistent. in what was going on. Number 2, words speak loud than actions, right? He was good with his tongue. You know, guy is a singer, is a producer, songwriter.
Yeah.
So he knows all the right things to say. Number 3, never take your friends and their opinions for granted. Yeah, because people were telling you, yo, are you sure this is not a Yahoo boy? Because they could see man was moving a bit mad, right? And then number 4, listen to your gut. So what was your gut telling you? You've not really said what your gut was telling you. What was your gut telling you?
Oh, yeah, no, my gut continued to tell me that he was not the person that he was trying to make out to be. So, and it's funny because I would even have dreams. Like I would have dreams where just bad things would happen because of this man. So it was like a constant thing where my intuition was telling me like, you deserve better. You shouldn't be in this situation. Someone who loves you wouldn't treat you this way, but yet I stayed. Yeah.
Phew. Lesson number 5, do not finance a relationship, especially if you are the woman. Say no more, Maji. Are you still being impacted by those moves you made? Have you cleared your debts, your credit card debt?
Not 100%, but almost. Like I've got like another year to clear off everything and then I'm good.
Mad thing.
I know.
Then the last but not least, the grass isn't greener on the other side. And I guess you're saying this because when you got back from Nigeria, you went back to your guy who you were already rocky with and you're like, let's take a break. Only for you to discover that this was complete disaster. Sure.
Legit, yeah.
Chi, thank you so much for sharing this. I'm kind of speechless.
And it's very rare for you to be speechless.
Yes. It is, but it's got to be speechless. I guess we'll catch up offline. But you guys have been listening to another episode of The Feeling Station. I'm your host, Tinto, and I look forward to catching you next weekend's episode. Peace.
Bye-bye.
Tell me what you're feeling.
Satis on Daro Raini and Chagezai.
Tell me what you're feeling. Now that it's over.
Satis on Daro Raini and Chagezai.
Let me talk about my feelings. Let me talk about my feelings, yeah.
Urudoi motor noto kujiziro amai.
Kujiziro amai. Love is a fire.
Urudoi motor noto kujiziro amai.